Okay. So what to do when a fall happens to you? And basically we're minimizing injuries if we do fall. Plan A is don't fall, but that's not always what happens in a perfect world. So if you are going to experience a fall, the best thing is to be able to do it well. And I know I sound crazy saying that you can think of these things while you're falling, but I have had people come back to me before and say, you'll be so proud of me. I had a fall, but I did a good fall. So it is possible. First part I'm going to go through is just demonstrating if you've had a fall or if you're falling, what you can do. There's 3 different directions that I demonstrate. So I demonstrate falling forward, backwards, and to the side. Even if you can remember one of these things when you're falling, it can help. It can save your head from an injury. It can potentially save you from hurting your shoulder, fracturing your wrist, breaking your hip. If we can prevent any of those, then that's a win. So when we're falling forward, what most people do is they're going to reach out and basically they're going to try and break the fall or stop the fall. And as soon as we lock our elbows, lock our wrists, when we hit, that impact goes all along the long bones into our shoulders, and that's where we get people with fractured wrists, separated shoulders after having a fall. So instead of thinking of breaking the fall, what you really want to think of is cushioning or absorbing yourself down to the ground when you fall. So to do that, you're going to think of soft wrists, soft elbows. So we're not locking it out. We got soft wrists, soft elbows, and then we're not stopping it. We're just going to slow the descent so that as we go to the ground, we're not hitting it with the same force. And then, of course, we also want to think of protecting our head. So if we didn't turn our head to the side, that's where we're going to get our nose, our cheekbones, our forehead hitting the ground with force, and you can get fractures, head injuries, things like that. So maybe I'll go from, I'll just move this forward. If I'm walking along and I'm going to fall forward, I'm tripping, I'm going to put my arms out, wrists are soft, elbows are soft, and I'm going to turn my head to the side. I'm meaning to fall. Usually everyone gets shocked when I do this, so I always give that heads up. So I'm going to, as you can see, I still let the fall happen. It's just I'm slowing the descent to the ground so there's not as much impact. I'm not locking my wrist so there's not that sudden force hitting through the wrist, through the elbow, or through the shoulder. I'm just cushioning my way to the ground. I'll do it from my knees so that it's in slow motion here. So as I go, I have soft wrists, soft elbows, and then I'm hitting the ground here, and then I'm going to lower myself down as I turn my head to the side so that I'm not smacking my nose, my chin, my cheekbones off of the ground. So there's some exercises I'm going to go over a little bit later that you can add into your daily life, daily activities to help build the muscle strength to be able to do that. You guys here, you already do some of them during class. You did some of them today. They're the fall preparedness exercises. So again, I'll do that once more from standing. If I'm falling forward, this often happens with a trip. If you catch your foot on the floor, if you have area rugs or throw rugs in your house, which are not good for fall safety, catch your toe on a door threshold, you're going forward. So you're going to let go of anything in your hand. So if you have something in your hand, let go of that. It's not important. You need to save yourself over whatever you're carrying, be it a drink, the newspaper. Let that go. Soft wrists, soft elbows, and then cushion yourself into the ground. Don't break it. Don't break the fall, I mean, and then turn your head to the side as you go down. So that's the forward fall. Backwards, we're thinking of the same thing. We're thinking of not breaking the fall, but we're more thinking of rolling into the fall. And we're also thinking of protecting our head. So backwards falls often happen in the winter. So we're going into the winter time here now, where you might slip, or sometimes we just lose our balance and we're not able to regain it as we go backwards. Just making sure I'm not missing anything here. Yeah. So one thing you really want to avoid And what people often tend to do is that we start to feel ourselves losing our balance backwards. As you can see there, I tense up, I lift my center of gravity, I almost arch my back. And if I go down like that, I'm going to go down like a tree. The first thing that's going to hit the ground here is going to be my head, and I'm coming from the highest point possible. So if you are into physics, you know that force equals mass times acceleration. So the higher up you are, the more time you have to accelerate towards the ground, the harder you're going to hit. So we want to think of the opposite. If you're starting to feel yourself go backwards, if you can't step your foot back to catch yourself, because obviously that's the ideal scenario, is you get your foot back to stop yourself from falling. If you can't do that, you want to think of getting yourself as low to the ground as you can before you lose your feet. So to do that, just think of bend your knees. So you're going to go down and you're that much closer to the ground, that much less impact. And then what you can see as I bend my knees here, my body starts to round, which is going to help us as we roll into this fall. Because if we stop on one point of our body, that's where all the force is going to go. So if I go backwards and I land on my behind, on my hip, and that's where I stop, all of the force from this fall is going into my hip. So I'm going to bend my knees, get close to the ground, and then my spine's going to roll. And to help with that, if I tuck my chin, that's going to round my spine a bit more, but it's also going to protect my head. Because if our chin is tucked, our muscles are going to support it, and our shoulders are going to be the final point to hit the ground there. So as I go backwards, I'm trying to bend my knees, and I'm tucking my chin. Even if I don't bend my knees and I tuck my chin, I still got a bit of a round, so I'm going to roll into this. And I'm not reaching my arms out behind me. This is how I separated my shoulder once in rugby. I got tackled. And so if we're bringing our arms in, they come in afterwards out to the side. You're almost slapping the ground. That's going to be the biggest noise you hear as I demonstrate this, is my hands hitting the ground after my body has hit the ground. So to go backwards, I'm bending my knees if I can. I'm tucking my chin, and I'm going to roll into the fall. I'm not stopping at my hips. I'm rolling right through to distribute the force, basically from my hips all the way up to my upper back. So as I go down, tucking my chin, protecting my head, my arms come out to the side, and that's where they'll break. Even if my arms didn't come out, it looks pretty much the exact same, where I'm just with my chin tucked, my head is protected, my shoulders are the final part that hits the ground with that. So one more time on that backwards fall. I want to make sure I'm not reaching my arms out. That's our instinct. That's where we're going to injure that upper body. So we're bending our knees, tucking our chin, and then we're going to roll into it. Arms come out after. And that can slow us down. I know this sounds crazy, that you can think of all these things while you fall, and you may not. You may be on the ground before you even know it. But there have been people, I assure you, that have thought of one or two of these things or all of them while they've fallen, and they've managed to get away without any significant injuries. So that's the backwards fall. Sideways, this is my least favorite one to demonstrate. It seems to be the biggest impact. But we're thinking of similar facts or similar features as the backwards fall. So we want to get, again, as close to the ground as we can before we lose our feet. So same idea, we're going to sink down through our knees if we can. If you only think of one thing, think of tucking that chin. Because as you go down sideways, if your head is just loosey-goosey, that's where we can not only get the side of the head hitting the ground, but that's where we also get the whiplash movement. So when you go down, head can hit the ground and bounce back. So not only are you dealing with the head injury of the skull hitting the ground, you're dealing with the brain rattling around inside of the skull. So we want to tuck the chin. That's going to engage those muscles of the neck and control that side-to-side whiplash. With the head, means our shoulders are going to be the final point of impact, which sounds bad, But ideally, the first point of impact is going to be down here on our lower leg, which means the force of this fall is spread out from our lower leg all the way up to our shoulder. So rather than just our hip taking it, just our shoulder taking the impact, we've spread it out through our entire body. So we're not getting that sudden impact on just the hip joint or just the shoulder. But again, you want to think of kind of rolling into it. So we don't want to break it. We don't want to reach our arm out to stop the fall. We're rolling into this fall. Chin is tucked, bending our knees, and then we're going to try and have this lower leg hit the ground first and then roll up the side of our body. In this case, I'm going to keep my arms in. I will do a demonstration if you put your arm out. But this one, we're going to go without. Try to do it as slow motion as I can. So bending my knees, tucking my chin. I'm leaning into it, so my lower leg is going to hit, and then I'm just going to roll into it. You can see my head did not come hit the ground. My head did not rattle around. There wasn't any one part of my body that took all the force. It spread it out through the whole thing. So again, I'll do that without the arm, and then I'll demonstrate with the arm. So going down, bending my knees, tucking my chin, rolling into it. Now, if you are going to reach out your arm, and if you know you have some bone density issues, and you're at a high risk of hip fractures, you may want to think of doing this in the sideways fall. So you're doing all the same things. You're going to bend through those knees. You're going to tuck that chin, but you're also bringing in the same ideas you thought of in the forward fall here. So our arm's going to come out, but we're not outstretching it into a locked position. This is where you're going to get a fracture. So we have a soft wrist, a soft elbow, and we're just accepting the ground, basically trying to cushion ourselves into it, but not stop it from happening. This is my least favorite one to demonstrate of all of them because I do not like the arm going out. It does not feel great. So again, we're tucking the chin, bending the knees. We're going to go down with a soft arm, cushion in. If I went down with this in a locked position, even in the demonstration, yeah, it's going to hurt. And I'm probably going to break something or dislocate something in here. But in the grand scheme of things, it's probably easier to get splinted for something here than it is to go have your hip repaired. So just kind of see what's comfortable for you there. I'll demonstrate that one more time with the arm. We're going to go bending the knees if we can, tucking our chin, and then the arm comes out, but it's not locked. Soft wrist, soft elbow, and just kind of rolling into it. So going sideways, you can only think of one thing. Roll into it, tuck the chin if you can. That's going to protect your head. The worst, probably the most serious injuries are those head injuries. So protecting the head is incredibly important. And then rolling into it is going to help you disperse the force, so you're less likely to experience a fracture with those. So that's your forward fall, your backwards fall, and your sideways fall. I'll do each of them one more time. Going forward, I am going to have my arms out, ready to absorb the ground, cushion the fall, not break the fall. And then as I go down, I'm turning my head to the side so that my face does not go into the floor. So lowering myself out of a push-up, turning my head to the side. That's forward. Backwards. If I can, I'm going to step my foot back, stop the fall. But if I can't, I'm going to try and get low to the ground, tuck my chin, arms are coming to the side, not reaching back. I'm going to roll into this with my chin tucked. Force distributes. And then sideways, two options. This is the first time I've done this demo with a pad, a cushion. It's kind of nice. And I didn't think of bringing the pad for cushioning purposes. I thought of bringing it because the floors are getting really dirty and it's cold and flu season. And I didn't want to get all the germs all over my hands. Anyway, sideways, without my arm, I'm going to bend my knees if I can. And I'm actually going to kind of lean my legs into it to make sure that they hit first. Tucking my chin and rolling into it. Or if I'm bringing my arm in to help cushion, I'm doing just that. I'm cushioning it. I'm not breaking it. So with your arms, never lock them out. Soft wrist, soft elbow. And going down, I'm going to lean into it, bend my knees, tuck my chin, rolling into the fall. All right, so that is the how to fall to minimize risk of injury. So if you're going to fall, try and think of protecting your head, cushioning yourself, not breaking it, and rolling into it. Just going to check my list here, make sure I'm following along with what I've written for you. Okay, so now you're on the ground. You've had your fall. You are on the ground. Now what do I do? What I do is the opposite of what my instincts are going to tell me to do. My instincts are going to tell me, oh my God, that was embarrassing. I need to get up and hope no one saw. Problem with that is when we fall, there's usually a little adrenaline rush that happens, and that adrenaline rush can mask major injuries. So I may have fractured a hip. I may have fractured my pelvis. If the adrenaline is masking that and I start to move, there's potential to increase that injury, make it exponentially worse. So I want to take a minute once I'm on the floor. I just want to take a minute, let that adrenaline start to flush out of my system, and then I'm going to do a bit of a scan. Scan my body. How do I feel? Are there any major injuries, particularly through the hips and the pelvis here? Because if you fractured through your pelvis or high up in the hip, we have a lot of major blood vessels that run right through there. And if those bones are fractured to where they can shift and move, and you start to try and move, there is the potential for those bones to shear against the blood vessels, greatly increasing the problem. So you take a minute, take some breaths, scan your body. How do I feel? Do I feel okay? Or is there a lot of pain in through my pelvis, my hips? In which case, if you are feeling that pain, ideally, we're going to stay where we are and we're going to call for help. So whether we have someone home with us that we can get to come help us, or whether we have our phone nearby, or some people have the fall alert necklaces or bracelets, so where we're going to want to utilize those. Have your cell phone, call your kid, call the 911, just call for help and try not to move. If you've done the scan, you're like, oh, okay. No, I think I weathered that pretty well. No major injuries that I can tell right now. This is where you can think of starting to get up. Now, if you do have major injuries, but you don't have any way of getting help, then you are going to have to try and get up and follow the same steps. But in a perfect world, we would have some way to get help to us without having to move. But I'm going to go into how to move at this point. So you're going to look around your space around you, and you're going to try and find a low surface. So something like a chair. I'm going to use a chair in this case. Maybe an ottoman, maybe a couch, but something that's about at the height where you can be on your hands and knees, get your upper body up onto it and use it for support. So I'm just going to pull the chair out here where everyone can see. So this is my low surface. There's a couple ways you can get to that surface, depending on your body and how you're feeling. The most efficient way is getting onto your hands and knees, and I know a lot of people don't like going on their knees, but you're in a situation, you've had a fall, if your knees are bad, you still have to get up. So you may have to just kind of toughen it up for a couple minutes while you get there. So you're going to just crawl on your hands and knees, get yourself over in front of the surface here. If you can't crawl on your hands and knees, I do have alternatives for you. So you can scoot on your behind. So using your upper body and your legs, you always just push yourself across the floor to get to that surface. Your upper body doesn't want to help out here. So if you have some problems in your shoulders and your arms, it takes a little longer, but you can just walk with your hips. So just lifting one hip and then the other, and just kind of walking yourself across the floor, taking breaks if you need to. Just getting yourself towards that surface. Or if you can't get up into that seated position, this is going to take a lot more work for your upper body, but you're just going to kind of try and army crawl yourself across the floor to get to that surface. And then once you are there, you can use that surface to help you. So I'm going to say I'm there. We're at this surface. This is where we want to get onto our hands and knees. You kind of have to at this stage. I haven't figured out how to get up off of your behind right up onto the chair. So you're gonna have to grit and bear it if your knees are really bad. Getting up onto your knees, and then we're gonna take our upper body onto the chair, onto the couch, the ottoman, whatever you have found. There are two ways to do this, and I've explained both of them in the handout that we will send. First way is deciding which leg is your good leg or your strong leg. That strong leg, and just so that I'm facing everyone here, I'm going to say this leg is my strong leg. I'm going to bring that strong leg up so that the sole of the foot is on the floor. And then I'm going to lean my weight into the surface. I'm going to press down through the foot using the strength of this leg in combination with my upper body. I'm going to push myself up, turn slightly so that I can get my hip onto the chair. And now I can take a minute. I'm up off the ground. I'm ready to go. Now, there's a lot of people, particularly ones who have issues with their knees and their hips, that we just don't bend that way anymore. And you need to find an alternative way to do it. So this was actually shown to me from Osteoporosis Canada, the woman who did the bone fit training when I did it. You're going to take your upper body in that same position. Your knees are on the floor. This time you're going to tuck your toes. So my toes are tucked under, and I'm going to engage my core. I'm going to press through my legs and press through my upper body, and I'm going to lift my hips up to the ceiling. Now from here, I'm going to bring my foot in and then turn my body so that my hip gets onto the chair. Now I'm up and I can move on. So I'll demonstrate both of those one more time. So if you can get your leg up, use your upper body resting on the chair, bring that leg under your strong leg, pushing into that leg, pushing into your upper body, bringing your hip onto the chair and up. If your leg doesn't bend that way, whether it was like that to start or the fall maybe has impacted you and you can't move your leg that way, you're going to tuck both your toes, upper body rests on the chair. We're going to engage our core. We need our core muscles here. And then lifting up through those hips, stepping a foot in, and then turning, getting our hip up onto the chair. So that's getting up off of the ground. It is the easiest to find a surface. Now, if you can't get up, and there's times where I've heard this, people, even if they have a surface, they can't get up off the ground. You can't reach the phone to call someone for help. What do? You can't just lay on the ground. People have had major issues with that. So in that case, what I suggest is getting to the door. You want to get yourself over to the door, get yourself outside, try and reach the handle, get the door open, and get yourself out where you can call for help. If you're in an apartment building, you don't even need to get the door open. Get to the door, start banging on the door and hollering for help. You don't want to be stuck on the floor for an extended period of time if you can help it. I like to share the story of I worked in a physio clinic once, and there was a man, and at the time he was only in his late 40s, but he had fallen and fractured his ankle bad, completely destroyed that ankle, and he could not get up. And at that time, he didn't have a cell phone with him to be able to call for help. So he actually had to crawl himself, like army crawl himself out of his house, down the porch, and then get to the road. And he flagged down a car driving by to help him. And they ended up having to call 911, get an ambulance there because it was a really bad break. But you need to get yourself to where you can get attention, get someone that can help you or someone that can call for help if you're in that situation. Which is why I always recommend having a telephone where you can reach it from the ground. So we used to way back have, the phones way up on the wall. Try, if you're at a risk of having a fall, bring them down. So maybe they're on a side table, as long as you don't have a toddler at home. Don't do that with a toddler. Or have your cell phone with you at all times. That way, if you are on the ground, you're stuck on the ground, you're able to call for help right from there. If you're injured, you don't have to try and move. You can call for help. Someone can come get you. So think of that ahead of time before you start having any falls. What's going to happen if I do fall? How can I get up? How could I call for help if I'm injured to where I can't get up? Or what is my plan? Think of that ahead of a time. My thought process on that is always, if you're prepared for it, hopefully it won't happen. But if I'm not prepared for it, something's always going to happen. So try and have a plan in place ahead of time for if you do fall. Those are the two options for getting back up after a fall. If you've gotten up all by yourself, how do you know when to seek medical attention? So I just have a couple points here that I want to touch on. So if you've hit your head when you've had a fall, generally it's recommended that you go get checked out. And the older you are, the more important that is, particularly if you're on any kind of blood thinner medications, because you could have had an impact to your head. You may feel okay, and there may be a tiny bleed happening in your brain that needs to be addressed. And if you're on blood thinner medications, that could make it that much worse. So if you have had a head injury when you've had a fall, get that checked out. The next suggestion is if you've sustained an injury that's preventing you from doing your daily activities or preventing you from using a limb. Usually that's an indication that maybe there's something wrong here. Maybe I've broken something. I should probably get this checked out, address it. Or if you're experiencing any sharp stabbing or shooting, strong pains, that's something perhaps to get checked out as well. And then this kind of goes on over the next couple days, thinking as well, if you start to experience symptoms out of the ordinary, such as dizziness, nausea, vomiting, shortness of breath, chest or abdominal pain, or changes in your bowel or bladder function, that's definitely something to reach out to your doctor and address with them, because you could have done something in the fall. You could have caused some kind of internal bleeding, potentially fractured a rib if it's trouble with breathing or pain in your chest. So anything out of the ordinary that kind of continues on, get that checked out. Make sure there's not something that you should be doing or something that they can do for that. Then there's the normal things that don't necessarily require you to seek medical attention that you may experience after a fall. So the most obvious thing is muscle, joint, body soreness and stiffness. Same as if you did a really hard workout, that's to be expected, and that will go away with time. Personally, I find getting some movement in usually helps with that, gets fresh blood to the area, helps flush out any lactic acid or things that have started to happen in the muscle there. So muscle and body soreness, stiffness, that's normal. And then what we also start to see is fear of having another fall. So once you've fallen once, people tend to be much more worried about having another fall. And where this becomes an issue is if it starts to affect your activities, starts to affect what you do and how you do it. Because if you become less active, if you start to isolate yourself, because you've had a fall, that's actually increasing your risk of having another fall. So you do need to try and keep moving, keep doing what you do, even after you've had a fall, even if you're a little afraid of having another one. Just maybe put in some checks. Is what I'm doing safe? Am I climbing a ladder to try and, change the light bulb? Am I rushing to the washroom without a walker when I should be using my walker? Am I rushing to the washroom in the middle of the night with no nightlight, so I have no idea where I'm going? Those are all kind of high risk for fall activities. So you start to think of those things, put those checks in place. That'll reduce your risk of having another fall, especially if you're worried about having another fall. And then another thing that we see is especially if your fall has happened in front of someone else, is you feel embarrassed that you fell. And again, that goes into that whole same chain of events where it can prevent you from wanting to go out, especially to where you just had the fall because you're embarrassed that someone will be there that may have seen you fall. So causing you to isolate socially. It can, again, prevent you from doing your activities, doing your exercise. So almost everyone falls. As embarrassing as it is when we fall, it happens and we shouldn't be embarrassed. Like even I teach falls prevention and I still have falls. Usually I tell everyone about it because it's fun for me, but it happens. So you shouldn't be embarrassed. Don't let that change your life. Don't let yourself get isolated because of it, because that'll just increase the risk of having another one. All right, we're on to the last page of the information before I demonstrate some exercises for you. So this is just kind of your plan A and plan B. So plan A is don't fall. So here I have written down ways to kind of help yourself head down the don't fall direction, is to stay on top of any chronic medical conditions. So with your doctor particularly, so things like diabetes, things like Parkinson's, MS, bladder control issues, things that are health conditions you're going to have for a very long time. Make sure you're staying in touch with your doctor. If symptoms are changing or you're struggling with a new symptom, see your doctor. They can maybe help you address that so that it's not a problem anymore, or less of a problem. For example, urinary incontinence or bladder issues is actually a precipitating factor in a lot of falls, particularly in the night. People are getting up out of bed and you're in a rush to get to the washroom. You may not have proper lighting. You're just waking up, so everyone's kind of dizzy and out of it. You may need an assistive device. You might not have time to grab it. So if there's something that you can work on with your doctor to address that issue, it's going to help reduce the risk of falling in that instance. And then the same with staying on top of any acute health conditions that may pop up. So staying on the bladder concern train is bladder infections. It causes the same symptoms, the same problems. So if they happen to pop up, get in, see your doctor as soon as possible. See, with even coming down with an illness that you have to take a different medication for, that could potentially make you dizzy, affect your blood pressure. So something, again, check with your doctor. They can make sure that the medications they give you aren't going to interact with medications you're already on, which takes us to the next point, is make sure you're checking in with your doctor or your pharmacist when it comes to your medications. Those annual reviews that some pharmacies have are actually a really good thing, because multiple medications together, while they may be addressing certain things, sometimes when you put them together, they actually can put you at a higher risk of having a fall, can cause dizziness, can cause low blood pressure, things like that. So the pharmacist and your doctor can help you figure out if that's an issue, and especially if you have more than one doctor, because one doctor might prescribe one thing, another doctor might prescribe another, and a pharmacist is a really good person to catch that. But never stop taking a medication without consulting your physician first. And then I have make good decisions written down. So maybe climbing a ladder to put up the Christmas lights is not the best thing for you to be doing anymore. Things like that are risky behaviors, traditionally, where you could easily lose your balance, you could fall from a height. Perhaps that's not something to be trying anymore. Time to get someone else to help you with those, or find a different way to do it. Maintaining social connections is actually a really good thing for helping to prevent falls and maintain your health. Those with stronger social support systems are more likely to engage in health promoting behaviors and less likely to engage in health harming behaviors. So try and keep those social circles. Then make safety adjustments in your living environment. So avoiding clutter, making sure you have good lighting, get rid of area rugs. They're a terrible trip hazard. In the bathroom, grab bars, handrails, things like that. what you're doing today, educating yourself, and then staying active is incredibly important. But if none of those plan A things, if they don't work, then we move on to plan B and we go into being prepared for a fall. So you can include exercises to help with this. So you want to maintain your overall fitness and mobility to begin with. Having stronger muscles, muscles that have more endurance, and being able to move through a full range of motion is going to help you both prevent injury if you do fall and make it easier for you to get up if you've had a fall. Strengthen the muscles needed to help cushion a fall. So for example, those arm and chest muscles that are going to help lower you to the floor instead of locking your arms out. Strengthen the muscles around the bones and joints that will be impacted by a fall. So studies have actually shown now that the stronger your muscles are through your legs and your hips, the less likely you are to fracture a hip when you fall. So simply by keeping these muscles through your hips and your thighs and your pelvic area strong, you are reducing the risk of fracturing a hip when you fall. And then strengthen the muscles that you would use to get up from a fall. So your upper body, your core strength, your legs. I'm going to demonstrate a couple exercises for those in a minute. And then maintaining the mobility in your joints so that you can move easily on the floor, across the floor, and getting up. So for example, when I was talking about at the chair here, there's a lot of people that become limited with getting this leg up to push themselves up. So trying to maintain that range of motion. All right, just gonna switch out my sheets of paper here. Be right back into my list of exercises. So we want to maintain our lower body strength to begin with. Simple way to do that, and there's a couple levels for it. So if you're still pretty mobile and going to some of our more advanced classes, and everyone's going to hate to hear this, is those squats. So keeping your weight evenly distributed throughout your feet, sinking those hips down and back, and then coming up. Again, you could do a modified version of that where you're sinking partially, a little bit, or if a standing squat is too much and you're still building up, then you can go into your sit to stand from your chair. So you have your feet underneath you, and then you're going to push down through your legs. You're going to stand up and sit back down. You could do this, say, 10 repetitions. You could do this for a minute. Or if you want to really work on balancing those leg muscles, you could work towards the single leg, where say you do 10 with one leg or 30 seconds with one leg, and then 10 or 30 seconds with the other leg here. So that's going to work on that hip and leg strength there. Kind of a split stance squat, or a lot of people think of this as a lunge, is really good to help with this movement. So you're going to have one foot, big step in front of the other, and then you're going to sink straight down and up. Of course, you want to have something you can hold on to for balance right nearby, just in case you need it, and sink straight down and up. If you're pretty strong, a little bit more advanced, you can sink farther down. So you go into 90-90. Or if that is still fairly easy, then you could go all the way down where that knee actually touches the floor and push up. Or an option I like to add into some of my classes that are quite advanced is go all the way down, step that front foot back, put the other foot forward, tuck the toe, push yourself up, and then come back down and switch. That seems crazy, but when we are getting up off the floor from our fall, we are doing exactly that. We are bringing that leg forward and we are pushing ourselves up. It's almost the exact same movement. If you're able to do that without the chair, even better. You don't have to get across the room. You can just push yourself up, bring your feet together. So it's a really functional exercise that can carry over into your everyday life. If you're cleaning, things like that as well, not just if you happen to have a fall. And then to strengthen and kind of work on the mobility, you can move to a set of stairs or a step. Do want to make sure you have something you can grab onto in case you were to lose your balance. You're going to have one foot up, one foot down, and facing to the side you have a railing, have it in front of you where you can hold on, and then you're just going to push up and lower yourself down with control. Pressing up and lowering yourself down. You could make that a little bit harder by keeping the weight on that top leg, sinking down and tapping the foot to the ground. That's working on the control and stability in the leg at the top. Or you can face forward, so handrail on one or both sides, and stepping up and then back down. Up and down. Again, that's working on those muscles that you need to push yourself back up from the floor. You can go with the tap down as well, so you're really working on the control and stability where you keep your weight on that top leg, tap that foot down. And then another thing you can do at the step is work on the mobility through the ankle and the knee. So you have your one foot up, probably want that foot that's down a little bit farther back. You can hold on, and then you're just going to press towards that front leg so that you're getting flexion at the ankle, flexion at the knee, at the hip. Again, that's working on that mobility where we're at that chair, we're bringing that leg up. We're going into that deep hip flexion, that knee flexion, that ankle flexion. So by having that foot up on a step, bending into it, we're moving in all of those ways, helping to loosen up those joints. And now the upper body portion, so when you're falling, that cushioning yourself down to the ground. Favorite exercise to work on this is push-ups. And you don't have to do push-ups on the ground. There's many options for this. So you can do it against a wall. So where you're going to take your hands basically in front of your shoulders on the wall, stepping your feet back. Pretend the wall's right here. There's a ledge here. And then the farther back your feet are, the harder this will be. You're going to bend your arms and then press yourself out and away. Bend and press it out and away. Feeling your chest and the muscles along the backs of your arms work. Your core is going to work. If that's too easy against a wall, you can move to a countertop, something that's anchored to the ground. So I'll use the back of a chair here. This is my countertop. Same thing, your hands come onto the countertop, your feet come back, and then you're going to lower yourself down and press up. If that's still too easy, you can move it to a chair, making sure that chair is up against a wall. For me to show it on the computer, I can't do it that way, but you're going to take your hand one on each side, feet are back, lowering yourself down and pressing up. I'm just showing all the different options. I don't expect everyone to be able to do all of them, but so that you know that there are the options where you can do regardless of your level. And again, that's going to strengthen those muscles that you need to cushion yourself to the ground and absorb that shock rather than extending the arms out, locking and breaking. All right, then we can go into our plank, which again can be against a wall, countertop, or a chair. So if I have a wall, I'm just gonna bring my arms kind of straight out in front here, rest my forearms on the wall, step my feet back, and then I can hold it here. I can hold for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. And if I want to build onto this, I can bring one knee up and then another knee up, where I'm engaging my core muscles. So where does this cross over? When we're on the ground and we're getting ourselves up, particularly if we're tucking the toes, lifting the hips, similar to that plank position here. And then we're bringing that knee in. That's the same as that knee coming up towards the chest here. Same thing, you can bring it to a countertop where you can rest those forearms on that countertop, step the feet back. You want a nice straight line, so what you never want to do is sag those hips down. That's going to put strain through that low back. So hips are straight, or if anything, a little bit high. Hold it here, and then of course you could add in one knee and then the other, taking it a little further, down onto a chair, forearms on the chair, legs are back, nice straight line, breathing here. You can bring one knee and then the other up. And just so those of you, if you are much more advanced, don't feel left out, you can always come onto the floor, into that plank, hold it, bring one knee and then the other up. Again, I don't expect everyone to do it, Just don't want anyone to say there wasn't an option for me. No one ever gets to say they're bored. All right, and then one more easy mobility one that you can do in bed, and everyone likes this because you're laying down. You can do it with using your arms, or I'm just going to grab my sweater because I forgot to bring a strap, which could be a belt you have at home. So just in bed or on the floor, you're laying on your back, and then just bringing one knee up towards yourself. You can either grab just below the knee or behind the thigh, or imagine this is a belt, or you could use a sweater if you wanted, behind, just below the knee or behind the thigh, and then you're just going to hug that in towards yourself. You can press that extended leg out and away, and this is just going to help with that hip mobility, that knee mobility. Even if you can't get it that far up, you're still getting as far as you can and holding it, so you're going to lengthen those muscles. And then also just do the other side. So same thing, either just below the knee or bringing it behind the thigh, and just pull it in towards yourself, and maybe reach out through the leg that's extended still, and just take some breaths and hold. Again, stretching out through the hips, through the knees, and that's going to help with that mobility. So I didn't want to put too many exercises in there because probably won't even remember all the ones I just said. I even needed a sheet of paper to remember them. But are there any questions? Right now, you can always reach out to us afterwards, send us an email, and we can answer them that way. And in the room here, any online? No, not right now. Okay, well, if you do have any questions come up, please feel free to shoot us an email at the EFP at comcareptpo.org email. We'll send out a copy of the presentation to everyone if you write your emails in. And thank you very much for tuning in today. It was great. Okay.